The site of Pentagonia is located on the Mississippi River, just west of Chicago. A group of archaeologists came across the site while looking into a common Mississippian artifact, marine shell. The archaeologists then directed their attention towards the site of Pentagonia when they came across multiple clusters of marine shell located in this particular area. In addition to marine shell, archaeologists also came across the in-depth layout of the society's site and structures. The location of the site allowed for great trade and irrigation, which helped support the Pentagonians' agriculture. The people's ability to sustain their crops allowed for a significant population growth, allowing for a population large enough to develop classes within their society. In addition to agriculture, the archaeologists were able to conclude that the culture within the site was a Mississippian culture, through the flat-top mounds precisely spread out over the land, and evidence of a complex foraging society. The site's original name is unknown, but after studying and examining the site, archaeologists named it Pentagonia, after the shape illustrated by the site's mounds, which can be seen from a bird's eye view. Archaeologists concluded that in addition to farming, the people of the area were also very skilled craftsmen, able to produce a variety of distinctive pottery. They used their pottery as a source of food storage. An example of this is the gourd containers archaeologists found at the site. In addition to a means of storage, the pottery the Pentagonians made was also used as jewelry. Due to their close location to the river, the people also manufactured a wide range of stone, bone, and shell artifacts for use as tools and personal adornment. Archaeologists also found remains of cups, gorgets, and beads that the people made. Like many of the other Mississippian cultures living during this time, the Pentagonians exchanged material and objects with different communities. The Mississippi River allowed for the trade between the communities to be very complex and stable. Evidence of trade is easily seen by a similarity in artifacts of other Mississippian sites. This beanpot found with this particular patterning was found during the dig at Pentagonia. An artifact very similar of this was also found in Fulton County at the Fraser site. In the marketplace, it was also common for one to have exchanged white-tailed deer hides or beaver pelts for marine shell, or for other exotic goods.
The artifacts left at the Pentagonia site are typical artifacts found at any Mississippian site. An abundance of projectile points were found at Pentagonia. These projectile points were made of stone and were shaped into knives, axes, or points for arrows and spears. These weapons were used for hunting and for warfare, which became more prominent as civilizations became larger. Stone tools were used for cutting wood, shaping bone, and slicing animal hides for clothing. Another tool used at Pentagonia was the mano and metate. The mano was a mealing stone, and the metate was a ground stone. These were used to grind plants, seeds, nuts, and maize. Ceramics played a large role in the Mississippian societies. The ceramics found at Pentagonia were classified as either ceremonial or for domestic use. Archaeologists could classify them by whether or not the pottery was decorated. Decorated pottery was typically used for special or religious ceremonies or were used in burials if that person was particularly important.
The architecture seen at Pentagonia is outstanding and rarely seen in other civilizations. The city was built using an organized and systematic method. Some artifacts found in the city were exclusive to the area, suggesting that the city was divided in different zones and each zone focused on a different aspect of the economy or society. Through these findings, we have been able to establish the existence of residential areas, an industrial zone, a trading zone, and a cemetery. The construction of a small stone wall within the city also clearly defines the division of these areas. Archaeologists believe this wall only served the purpose of establishing precise boundaries and organization. The Pentagonians' knowledge in mathematics and geometry helped them develop their advanced architecture. Within these areas, there are different mounds or buildings that were carefully built and well engineered. 5 of the biggest mounds conform the shape of the pentagon and are distributed in each different area. They are flat-top mounds that resemble a ziggurat and have the purpose of hosting ceremonies and providing entrances to the city. On the top of the mounds there are pentagon-shaped multi-dwelling units, where the leaders of each area and their families lived. The walls of these houses were made of clay, and the roofs were made with wood and hay. On the edge of the city, there are the remainings of a tall stone wall that connected the 5 outer mounds that protected the city from external attacks. Finally, centered in the city, Closer to the top mound, there's a central plaza with symbols engraved on the ground that represent their religion and various gods. At the central plaza, there are also massive statues of their past leaders that are believed to have been built in order to pay public respect to their power and knowledge. The fast development of their culture gave way to all these architectural innovations that we can now appreciate and visit.
Pentagonia's political structure was based entirely on their religion. Religious leaders were responsible for communicating with the gods to determine how life should be lived within the society. By comparing artifacts found on the largest mound, their main god was based on the sun, since it was always expressed as larger than the others. It is assumed that the people looked to this entity as the controller of how successful their harvest might be. Much of the time, this god was shown holding an ear of corn in each hand, one healthy and one dead. A god of the moon was also found in various forms on the main mound. This was expressed by the body of a pregnant woman and the head of the moon, possibly pointing to control of fertility. There was no evidence found that would point to sacrifice as a common practice. Burials were found to be correlated with where each member of society dwelled. Large graves were found just outside of each mound. The smallest burial site was that of the religious leaders, behind the largest mound, where religious artifacts previously described were found among the human remains. Slightly larger graves were found behind the mounds where artisans and craftsmen resided, with the largest grave located between the two mounds furthest from the main mound. This grave contained the lowest and most populous social class. It held the remains of all laborers, identified by trauma on their knees and ankles, and women. This specific burial site is the only place where women remains could be found, pointing to the fact that this was an entirely patriarchal society where women could not hold leadership or occupational roles. Due to the lack of evidence of where the people of Pentagonia truly went to, archaeologists concluded that societies surrounding the site began dying off due to illnesses. Due to the absence of populations, the trading system collapsed, causing the society to collapse as well.